one is x and which one is y. And I think we're going to start adding that on the problems. We're going to write down what x and y are to help us. So these were the problems we did yesterday as a class. Let's figure out the x and the y. There are different ways of doing this, but one way, the y-intercept has the units of your y value because the y-intercept is a y. So the b, that was our y-intercept, the one-time thing. That was my 5. What were the units on my 5? Dollars. So my y here is the dollars. Okay, so then the other thing, we can look at the slope. I kept telling you it's, if you look at what comes after the per, that's the x, the cost per ride. So the x would be the number of rides here. Okay, another way to think about it, we know when we do slope, we've done it 1,000 times now, we do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. The y's are on top. So when I look at my units on my slope, cost per ride, the y is on top, so that's my cost or my dollars, per x, my ride. And if you know what x and y are, then you can make sure to plug things in correctly later on. So we're just going to go through each of these and write down the x and the y. So on the second one, what was my y-intercept here? The b was my 25. What were the units on that? Dollars. So my y is measured in dollars on this problem. So the x is the other thing in the problem. Or you can look at your slope. It was dollars per hour. So my x would be the hours. Okay, if I look at the third one, my y-intercept, 42,935. What was that? Dollars. Okay, so my x, look back and let's see what else we have. When I look at my slope, it was dollars per year. So my x would be the year. When I look at number 4, okay, my y-intercept was 6. What were the units on that? Dollars. Okay, my slope, cost per gallon. So my x was the gallon. Okay, we're going to do this problem together. So this is similar to yesterday's. The startup cost to join eTunes Music is $7.95 plus 95 cents per song. This is not on here, sorry. It's just an extra one that I added in. You can do it in the margin or something if you need to, or scrap paper. Okay, so let's stop right there. We need to know what's my x, what's my y, I need my slope, and my y-intercept, okay? So how, the slope, that's the easiest thing to pick out in the problem, because what does it always have with it? Per. So when I see the per, that's my slope. So my slope is 95 cents, 0.95. Okay, so that means my y-intercept, the one-time thing, was 7.95. Okay, what were the units on my y-intercept? Dollars. So my y is my dollars. So that means my x was the songs. Okay, you guys okay with all of that? So now my equation, y equals mx plus b. My slope, 0.95x plus b, 7.95. So that's the equation. In a little bit, you're going to get your handout from yesterday back. A couple of you, I wrote at the top equation because you never actually wrote this down. And it asks for the equation and then to solve something else. So if I wrote at the top, write the equation, you need to make sure you have an equation with x and y in it. All right, now we answer the second question. If Will spends $26. So if that's dollars, is that my X or my Y? My Y was dollars, so I am plugging that in for the Y. Okay, then how do we solve this equation? So 26 minus 7.95. Divide by 0.95. And we get 19. And what would be my label? Songs. X was the number of songs. And it asked us, how many songs did he download? So it was 19 songs. Does it help writing out X and Y? Does it make it a little more clear where to plug in that 26 later on? Because that seemed to be the main problem yesterday. Okay, any questions right there? All right, so we are going to continue on these notes. But we're going to be writing equations that are slightly different. Yesterday, I gave you the slope and intercept every time. So we were putting them in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Today, we're going to be writing things in standard form. What is standard form? And we are going to use this when the problem relates to different objects. Okay, in other words, yesterday we picked the strategy we did because we were given the slope in every problem. We always had that something per something. So we had our slope, so it was easy to put the equation in slope-intercept form. Today's problems, we are not going to be given a slope, but we can still write an equation. The first thing I'm going to do, I want to stick with identifying X and Y, and I want you guys to write it down. You are going to get points for writing down X and Y from now on. So let's look at a problem. Sam ordered 2 hamburgers and 3 hot dogs from the concession stand at the baseball game. His bill came to $19.05. If hamburgers cost $5.25 each, write and solve a linear equation to find the cost of each hot dog. Okay, a lot of information there. I did not give you a slope because if I look at my numbers, did anything have a per after that? No, so no slope was given. X and Y. We have to figure out what we don't know. So I know how many hamburgers he bought. I know how many hot dogs he bought. And I have my bill, right? What am I trying to find? The cost of each hot dog. Okay. So we are going to let one of these variables stand for hot dogs and one of them stand for hamburgers. It actually doesn't matter a bit which one is which. So that's why it's so important that you label, because I may pick hamburgers for my X and you may be doing hot dogs for your X. So I have to know what you're doing. So I'm just going to say my X is hamburgers and my Y is hot dogs. Okay, now I am trying to write an equation for the cost. So how many hamburgers did I buy? 2. So to find out how much money you spent on hamburgers, you would have to take 2 times the number of hamburgers you bought. Plus, how many hot dogs did we buy?
3.
So to find the amount we spent on hot dogs, we take 3 times the number of hot dogs. Or, sorry, 3 times the cost of the hot dog. equals, how much money did we spend? Okay, so the writing an equation, I want an equation with x and y. That's the first question. Now we have to solve for something. So if we look, hamburgers cost $5.25. So which variable is that? Hamburgers is my x. So I am plugging 5.25 in for my x. Is this an equation we can solve? So 2 times 5.25 if I subtract over 1050, get 3y equals 355. Divide by 3, and what do we get? 285. Okay, the question was we were finding the cost of each hot dog. So what would my label be here? Dollars. So a hot dog costs $2.85. Any questions on that? Does it help writing out what x and y are? Let's keep trying. So, tickets at a school play cost $4 in advance or $5 at the door. Total ticket sales for an evening production were $440. Okay, let's just stop right there. Can we write an equation for this piece? Okay, what are the variables, the x and y? What are the two different options? Right, advance or at the door. So I'm just going to say x is my advance tickets and the y would be at the door. So my equation, they cost $4 in advance. So what would I put? 4x plus $5 at the door. And how much did that bring in? 440. That is my equation. That's the first thing we are asked to find. Now it's going to ask me to do something else with that. So there's my equation. Let's see what else we need to do. If no tickets were sold in advance. Okay, advance is what variable? Yeah, the x. And if no tickets were sold, what does that mean? X equals 0. Alright, so we'll plug in a 0 for the x. So we have 0, 0, so that goes away. 5 by 5, so 440 divided by 5. Thank you. So that would be 88 tickets at the door. Questions there? Alright, take a look at the second one. I don't want you to do the whole thing, but see if you can identify x and y and write an equation. I don't want you to try to solve anything yet. We're going to check our equation before we do that. So x and y. are your two things that we don't know. What are those things? Dimes and quarters. It doesn't matter which is which. I see people both ways, so I could make my X my dimes and my Y quarters, or if you have it flipped, that doesn't mean you're wrong. That's fine. That's why we write out what X and Y are. Okay, then I'm talking about the total value. That's talking about money. How much is a dime worth? 10 cents. So to get the value from my dimes, we would do 0.10 x plus how much are quarters worth? So it'd be 0.25 y equals 11.40. Now, if on your labels you have x as quarter and y as dime, then it would just be flipped. You'd have 0.25x plus 0.1 y. There's my equation. Now, it tells me I have 36 quarters. So what variable am I putting that in for? My problem, my quarters were my y, so I'm going to plug in a 36 for my y. X turns out to be 24 what? Dimes. Try the last. We have the Oakville High School Marching Band sold gift wrap to earn money for a band trip. Solid color gift wrap sells for $3.50 per roll, and printed gift wrap sells for $5 per roll. So when I am looking at this, what are my two unknowns, my X and my Y? Solid and printed. A couple of you use the amounts. You put the $3.50 roll and the $5 roll, that's okay. As long as when you write your sentence it makes sense. Or not when you write your sentence, when you label your answer it makes sense, so that's fine. You just need to know what X and Y are. So then the equation. The solid is $3.50 per roll, so we would put, and the printed is $5 a roll. So that would be 5y. And they earned $2,500. That's the equation. If you did not write that down, if you were plugging in numbers for X and Y first, you would lose points, because if I put this on test or quiz, I'm going to say, what is the equation? You have to give me an equation with both X and Y in it before we plug in the other stuff. Then we know that the band sells 325 rolls of printed paper. Which one is my printed? So my Y is 325. So we have 3.50x plus 1625. Subtract that over. Equals 2,500 minus 1625. Give me 875. divided by the 350. And what's that? So we have 250 rolls of the solid paper. Questions there? Okay, so your practice on this is the back of yesterday's handout. Yesterday we did 1 through 5. Today you have 6 through 10. When I give this to you, I want you to look at it. I checked the front, but I haven't given you a grade on it yet. I'm giving you a chance to fix anything. So if I have a number circled, that one is wrong, you need to look at it. If I wrote at the top, write the equations, make sure you go back and write the equations. If you have a check mark at the bottom of your page, then the front page is good. All you have to do is worry about the back, okay?